If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Sir, you didn't clap. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, clap your feet. So, distinction in leadership. Allow me to introduce myself. So this picture was me of it's a selfie about 4 years ago. So, all right, 12 years ago. So, my name is Onyi Anyado, and I'm a UK-based global leadership speaker and workshop facilitator. So I was born and raised in Hackney, East London, which is literally 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes away by walking or by driving, to a 2.4 family. My mother, my father, my sister and myself. Unfortunately, at a very early age, I think when me and my sister was 6 or 7 or 7 or 8, my dad left. So for the majority of my childhood years and my teenage years, it was just me, my mum and my sister. Now, I'm coming from a Nigerian background, born and raised in Hackney. Any Nigerians inside the place? Oh, one. Diversity is doing very well, very well. Diversity, one of the buzzwords. So, born and raised in Hackney, as I said. My mum, best mum in the world, very strict Nigerian. She had a great educational plan for me. So I went to a secondary school, St. Aloysius in Archway. I went to Southgate College in Northwest London, studied business study, which was pretty good. I came out with a merit, which was all right, I suppose. I went to Middlesex University and I studied management and marketing. And Middlesex University in Northwest London was an experience. I mean, wow. I mean, growing up in Hackney, I had majority of my friends, or all my friends were black. But going to university, I had white friends, Indian friends, Turkish friends, and Chinese friends. At the time, Burberry's was in fashion. So it was a few years ago. Burberry's had its fashion cycles. And so I had so many Chinese friends because they love Burberry. Unfortunately, when I got to the second year of university, I got distracted and I dropped out of university and began living a particular life called a street life. Now, some of you may not necessarily know what it means. It wasn't really gangs, but it was just young men on the streets of East London up to no good. Unfortunately, in that 10-year period, 6 of my friends got murdered, and then he got shot dead, and I saw Her Majesty on 2 occasions. Now, I'm not talking about Buckingham Palace. I think I'm going Buckingham Palace next year to win a few awards. So now, I'm a UK-based global leadership speaker and workshop facilitator. Here's my social media. So let's get trending. I think the hashtag is SEACON 2019. So let's take some videos, let's take some pictures, etc. So, we're now living in very interesting times, very exciting times. I've called this era the era of creative distinction. We're not just entering a new year, but also a new decade. And it's interesting, though, when I studied management and marketing, one of the things I can remember from university is the PEST analysis: political, economical, social, and... All right, so there's a few university dropouts here, I know. We're in the same ball. So, so it's interesting. It wasn't really relevant in the late 90s, but it's absolutely fantastically relevant now because the global market is now local and the local market is now local. So what is leadership? I'm sure we've been to leadership conferences, seminars, workshops, done programs. So in 2015, I said the following: leadership isn't about age, but rather leadership is about influence, impact, and inspiration. Leadership isn't about age. It's not how old you are, it's not how young you are, it's not how long you've been in your organization. Leadership is about influence, impact, and inspiration. Question. I think Tupac said it best: even a genius asks his questions. Before we can influence, impact, and inspire ourselves, our organization, who's the first person we have to impact? Yeah. And it's interesting now with Brexit, the world is changing at an alarming rate and everyone's worried, everyone's panicking, everyone's like, oh my gosh, are we in, are we out, are we shaking it all about? What's happening with Brexit? What's happening in the UK? What's happening with Europe? But I think now is the time for us to birth our leadership distinction for not just us, but our staff, our employees, and our organization. So leadership isn't about age, but rather is about influence, impact, and inspiration. So distinction in leadership isn't a mindset. Distinction in leadership is a state of mind. So you heard my story. I was born and raised in Hackney, East London, 2.4 family, didn't know my dad for how many years. In fact, funny enough, 7 years ago on Father's Day, me and my father reunited after 25 plus years. Ladies and gentlemen, it was one of the most emotional times of my life, not seeing my dad. But I realize now I'm a global leadership speaker. I've dropped out of university, but I had to re-engineer my mind, because I realized that it's not just about a mindset, it's about a state of mind. So as we enter a new decade, not just a new year, the era of creative distinction, it's important as leaders, as managers, that we not just engineer our mindset, but that of our employees as well. So earlier on this year, I was in Sweden, which is in Stockholm in Sweden, and I was also in Lisbon, Portugal. And it was interesting working with managers that had a fixed mindset. They didn't really understand the essence of leaders. In fact, when I asked the majority of them, how many of you are leaders? These are managers of top corporates in Norway, in Sweden and Portugal. Half of them didn't even put their hands up. Didn't actually believe or had that responsibility they're leaders. But I'm thinking, like, if you're a management position, obviously you're in some kind of leadership position, the responsibility is on you is to actually empower and educate and equip your staff to develop your leadership distinction. So distinction isn't a mindset, it's actually a state of mind. So the first thing I want to speak about is about vision. I'm very excited for the new decade. I'm really, really excited. For the last 7-8 years, I've been building my brand. I've been evicted a few times, life of an entrepreneur. I remember I couldn't afford the days of I couldn't afford 20-piece spaghetti. But I saw a bigger picture. I knew that I didn't know how to give up. So the first thing I want to speak about is about vision. And it's a personal message to each and every single one of you. So dear leader, your vision is your future. So what do you see? What do you want? And what's your distinction? Dear leader, your vision is your future. So, what do you see for your organization in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? The great visionary leaders, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Elon Musk, they're not actually in 2020. They're actually 10, 15 years down the line. So one of the things that's going to distinguish us, how do we lead with our distinction and innovation, is actually becoming visionary leaders. It's actually seeing the future, because the future that we're not thinking about has already started. And that's what distinguishes Google and IBM and Facebook, because they're already in the future. So dear leader, your vision is your future. What do you see? What do you want? What do you see? What do you want? And what's your distinction? So when I came in the industry, one of the things I promised myself, or two things I promised myself: one, I will never call myself a motivational speaker. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the time, there was many motivational speakers saying the same thing: be the best you can be, never give up on your dreams, which is great, but that's kind of a particular level. And my distinction was that I would never quote anyone, but rather I'm going to be quoted. And now my message of cutting-edge distinction is being quoted around the world in universities and businesses and corporates and educational platforms. So what do you see? What do you want? What's your distinction? Working with managers, I realized that they just wake up in the morning, come to work, sit in front of a computer, give out orders, and then go home. But there has to be now a clear distinction between your organization and your competitors. Because if there's not a clear distinction, then how can we distinguish you? How can your customers distinguish you? So dear leaders, your vision is your future. What do you see? What do you want? And what's your distinction? Many of us might be afraid of the unknown. But I've always wondered, how can we be afraid? How can we be scared of something we haven't seen? So vision is so powerful. The organizations that are going to take the lead with innovation are going to be the ones that have seen the future and begin to take baby steps to see the future. The next thing I want to speak about is about branding. Now, I know many of us, we understand about branding, what branding is, but in 2015, I said the following: branding is not just a product, it's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. Branding is not just a product, it's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. So branding is not the app, it's not the car, it's not the service. It's a way of life, an idea, which is the culture of your organization. Branding is actually leadership. So I had to create the 3 V's of branding: organizational branding and really personal branding. Your vision, your values, and your voice. By a show of hands, who thinks that their staff, employees, don't understand the vision, the values, and the voice of the organization? Okay, well, don't be shy. No, we're not in class. Okay, a few of us. So it's important that we understand, and even if our staff do know the vision, the values, and the voice, do our customers actually know the vision, the values, and the voice of the organization? Because ultimately, that's going to be your distinction. Why do human beings, I've got a Samsung, I haven't really got an Apple, but, Apple is a globally recognized brand. When Apple, as an iPhone 11 comes out, why do human beings line up in the rain, in the snow, in the sleet for 7 days, 5 days? It's not necessarily about the product, the phone, it's about the vision, the values, and the voice of Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs has been dead for a few years now, maybe about 6, 7 years now. But his vision, his values, and his voice is still speaking. So the essence of cutting-edge leadership, leading with distinction, disrupting with innovation, is to be legacy-minded. So you don't have to be dead to leave a legacy. So when we think about legacy, straight away we think somebody's got to die and then they left a great name or memory. No, actually, it's about leaving your vision, your values, and your voice, because there's no such thing as actual job satisfaction, or job security, I should say. I'm sure many of you have got a great job and you're satisfied with your job, I hope. But there's no such thing as actually job guarantees. So one of the things that's going to distinguish us as leaders, and we've got to now impact and impart on our employees, is actually the vision, the values, and the voice of the organization. Why? No brand, no distinction. So branding is not just a product. It's also a way of life. That's the culture of the organization, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. And remember, we've ascertained that leadership isn't about age, but rather leadership is about influence, impact, and inspiration. So working with a few middle managements, it was quite interesting. Like, many of them are tired because they're not seeing anything new. They're not seeing anything new. They're not understanding that they are actually part of the organization's brand. And the only way the brand can become cutting edge and distinguished and lead with disruption and innovation is if they actually run with the flag of branding, which is the vision, the values, and the voice. Can someone tell me their organization they work for? Anyone? I mean, don't all rush at once, but... Okay, let me pick on someone. If you look at me, I'm going to pick you. If you've got a pink shirt, a pink jumper on, and a lovely smile, that's you. Yes. What organisation do you work for, sir?
Barclays.
Okay, Barclays. Okay. I was actually spoke at Canary Wharf, the Barclays, last week or 2 weeks ago, and I used to deliver the Barclays Life Skills Workshop, and I think I've got a £50 overdraft, I think. So, but that's neither here or there. Obviously, what's the vision, the values, and the voice of Barclays? Make as much money as possible, of course. But imagine somebody, a graduate, came in and had that understanding. So it's not really, is that actually the vision, the values, the voice?
Depends who you talk to.
Yeah.
You talk to some people who tell you that they're innovative, they're
Yep.
forward-looking, they're building a very customer-friendly brand.
Yes.
But I think it depends what newspaper you read and you listen to. You might talk to a lot of people who say it's all about making as much money as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
For the people.
And I think that seems to be the issue. So we have to know that, okay, if I'm working for my organization, I am the media. What I say on social media, what I say in networking events, what I say on stage, what I say in my department, has to be the vision, the values, and the voice. Because if we're speaking anything apart from the organization's vision, values, and voice, there's going to be division. So dear leader, your brand is what will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. The next thing I want to speak about is about creativity. By show of hands, maybe I can come down. What does creativity mean to you? Now, I'm going to be picking on people now. So if you look at me, I'm going to pick you. Everyone puts their head down. So what does creativity mean to you?
Thinking out of the box.
Sorry?
Thinking out of the box.
Excellent. Thinking outside of the box. Madame, what does creativity mean to you?
Being able to show your inner potential in a different way.
Okay, so thinking outside the box, showing potential in different ways. Sir, Gary.
Thinking up something new.
Okay, brilliant. Thinking something new.
On the spot. I wasn't even thinking. Being able to make something that's like different.
Okay, making things different. Okay, let me pick on one more person. Yes.
Being courageous.
Wow, I like that. Being courageous. Thank you very much. Give them a round of applause. That's fantastic. Okay, cool. But as I round up, creativity actually is a new qualification. So you're all right, kind of, maybe not, but creativity is a new qualification. And what is creativity? I created the 3 C's: critical thinking, collaborative thinking, and creative thinking. Critical thinking, collaborative thinking, and creative thinking. So as we enter into a new era, a new decade, not just a new year, the era of creative distinction, it's critical, it's vital, it's important. One, that we understand the essence of cutting-edge leadership, that isn't about age, but rather is about influence, impact, and inspiration. And that our foundation is the 3 V's, our vision, our values, and our voice. And that truly, creativity is a new qualification. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience. Give yourself a round of applause.